Center Stage. David Young carrying Republican hopes for retaining Iowa's 3rd District seat in the United States Congress. A conversation with the surprise candidate on this edition of Iowa Press.
Funding for Iowa Press was provided by Friends, the Iowa Public Television Foundation.
Iowa banks know you want honest advice about how to best reach your financial goals, whether it's financing and education, buying a new home, growing a business, or funding retirement. Iowa Banks, Iowa Values. MyIowaBank.com.
The Rotary Clubs of Iowa and Rotary International.
In 1985, Rotary International committed to a goal of ending polio worldwide. Very soon now, after immunizing over 2 billion children, the goal will be achieved. Rotary, humanity in motion.
Iowa Community Foundations, an initiative of the Iowa Council of Foundations, connecting donors to the causes and communities they care about, for good, for Iowa, forever. Details at iowacommunityfoundations.org. The Associated General Contractors of Iowa, the public's partner in building Iowa's highway, bridge, and municipal utility infrastructure. Iowa Communications Network. The ICN is committed to the enhancements of distance learning and continues to meet the demands for greater access of high-speed internet by educational users. For decades, Iowa Press has brought you politicians and newsmakers from across Iowa and beyond. Now celebrating more than 40 years of broadcast excellence on statewide Iowa Public Television. This is the Friday, June 27 edition of Iowa Press. Here is Dean Borg.
Choosing a political party's nominee for an open seat in Congress is somewhat like casting a one-person play. Several hopefuls, only one getting on stage. Choosing Iowa's 3rd District Republican candidate had its own drama. First, a primary election, but none of the 6 receiving the necessary 35% margin. That leaving the decision then to about 500 district Republican delegates convening in what one national reporter described as a political carnival. After 5 rounds of voting, a surprise pick for the 3rd District's leading role. David Young is the Republicans' candidate against the Democrats' Stacey Apple. Mr. Young, Senator Charles Grassley's former chief of staff, now looking to carry that surprise momentum from a 5th-place primary election finish to holding Tom Latham's current seat in the Congress. Mr. Young, welcome to Iowa Press.
Dean, Kay, Kathy, great to be here. Thank you.
We're looking forward to a conversation with you. And across the table, Des Moines Register political columnist Kathy Obratovich and Radio Iowa News Director Kay Henderson.
Mr. Young, beyond a Chuck Grassley protege serving as his chief of staff, who is David Young?
David Young's a small-town kid from Van Meter, Iowa. He loves his state, he loves his neighbors, family, community, and he just wants to do what's right. He's got some experience in Washington, seeing what's been going on out there. He's seen the good, the bad, a lot of bad out there. I've seen the ugly of Washington, D.C. I've been caught by its trappings, and I'm ready to take it on.
You first quit the Grassley office to run for the United States Senate, but midway through, you decided to run for Congress. Why?
Well, you know, that Senate race was pretty complicated, and there were 6 people in there, and I'm glad I got out of there after seeing what Joni Ernst did, who I greatly support. That door opened when Congressman Latham decided to announce his retirement, someone who I think Iowa will very much miss in the Congress, but I'm happy to go after that seat and take those shoes. But and then we got into the House race, as you know, and then again 6 more people. That time in the Senate race made me a better candidate. It made me work harder, and here we are, sitting across from you today.
You used magic tricks in your ads, and at the convention, you said somebody asked you if winning the nomination after coming in 5th, after being really behind during most of the ballots, suddenly you pop up as the nominee. Was it magic? How did that happen?
I'm not a magician by trait, and you know what you saw in my commercials, anybody could learn on a bar stool or on YouTube. I
Is that how you learned it?
I learned it on YouTube. 5th place in the primary, in a very competitive primary. You know, the 5 of us, the top 5, were all within single digits from one another, which shows how great the candidates were and the tough picks that the electorate had. And then we go into the convention, and it's anyone's game in that sense. And our strategy was to go see those delegates, try to touch them 3 times between the primary and the convention, be nice to the other candidates, and if I wasn't the first pick for those delegates, ask to be their second, because as candidates fell out, I wanted to be the number 2 pick, and we thought that would propel us to the victory.
How do you go out of the convention where 500 Republicans said you're the nominee and get the rest of the Republican Party in the 3rd District to see you as, in fact, their first choice as they look at the general election? Well,
all in all, the convention is a very democratic process. And at the end of the day, everybody in that gymnasium was standing on their feet and clapping. We have a nominee. My opponents have reached out to me and said, David, I support you. I'm telling my supporters to support you. Let's go to November. Let's win this.
But do you have to do work on the campaign trail, essentially shoring up the base before you can focus wholly on the general election?
Well, you want to appeal to all parts of the party, of course, and, different factions there are, and I've got great relationships with them, and we're finding the 90% that we all agree on, and we're going forward.
Your general election opponent, Stacey Apple, and Democrats, as soon as you were nominated, labeled you a Tea Party extremist. They're calling you a D.C. insider who promised delegates at the convention the way you won was by promising to cut Social Security and Medicare. Address the D.C. insider label, because you have actually told people that one of the reasons you should be elected is because you know your way around Washington.
Well, it's a strength, and knowing how to hit the ground running in Washington, D.C. is an asset. And working for Senator Grassley under his mentorship and tutelage is not a bad thing. We did some good things there. He taught me how to listen to people. Iowans are my boss, not anyone else, not party leadership. And we see what happens with party leadership sometimes. Look what happened to Eric Cantor when you don't remember who your boss is.
But you're kind of, as I get it, Kay's question runs to the core of this. You're trying to run as an insider and an outsider, because you just told us a few minutes ago, I've seen the good, bad, and the ugly of Washington. I'm ready to take it on. So that means you're running as an outsider, and yet you're saying, I can hit the ground running there.
Sure. Well, I wish the U.S. Capitol was not in Washington, D.C., and I never had to leave Iowa. But that's where it is. And that's where I wanted to go, to work for Iowa and work with Senator Grassley and use those experiences. Being on the phone with Iowans every day and meetings with Iowans every day, and then getting out to all the 16 counties.
What about the substance of the cuts to Social Security and Medicare, which was the criticism out of the gate from your opponent?
Well, I've never said that. And first of all, we need to make sure that Social Security and Medicare is preserved for our seniors. That promise has to be kept. And we need leadership on this issue. We need it from the White House, we need it from Congress, and we need to make sure that it's strengthened and there for future generations. We have to put everything on the table. This is what President Reagan did in 1984 with Tip O'Neill in the Congress, and Democrat leaders and Republican leaders agreed. Put it all on the table. You can take things off, but you have to start with an honest debate. This is a big issue for Iowans.
How will voters differentiate you from Stacey Apple? What will they see as major differences?
Well, she has a voting record. It's a very liberal voting record, and I don't have a voting record. And we'll be able to make that contrast out there. I'm not going to give our strategy away to you, but we'll be talking about things like Obamacare, taxes, and the role of government.
So what will you tell voters about Obamacare?
Well, it's the law of the land right now. I didn't like the process. I don't like the law. But it is the law, and as long as President Obama is the president, it's likely not to be repealed. Now, you see a lot of Democrats who are running away from Obamacare here in this election. So there may be ways to tweak it, fix it. I'd like to start all over and see it repealed, but knowing that it's probably not likely this time around, we're going to need to have a supermajority if that did happen. So I'm telling folks that I want to attack the problems within it as long as it's there.
So would you delay the employer mandate?
Yeah, I would.
Do you see yourself more in the mold of Tom Latham or another congressman neighbor to the west, Steve King, as you look at what kind of congressman you would be?
Well, Tom Latham has been a great representative for this district, and both of them, Steve King and Tom Latham, are folks that can identify problems and want to be at the table with solutions. My demeanor is a little more calm and reserved, but it doesn't mean that I'm not passionate or firm in my resilience when it comes to issues.
So one example of a difference between those two is Congressman Latham voted to raise the debt ceiling and end the government shutdown. Steve King was on the other side of that issue. Where do you think that you would follow in Tom Latham's steps in issues like that?
Well, first of all, we have to have the debate, and I want to look at, watch the debate, talk to colleagues. And, Iowans are very concerned about debt. I'm concerned about debt. People all across the country are concerned about debt. And the debt ceiling is a big issue. Government shutdowns are big issues. This is just a big, symptom of a dysfunctional government not doing their job and not being able to control spending. If the debt ceiling is going to go up, I want to see something negotiate on it. Something that gives us some fiscal discipline and maybe helps strengthen our entitlement program, things like that.
Does that
but
mean
would you go as far as not shutting down the government in order to achieve that? That is, you want to achieve fiscal responsibility, a debt ceiling. But would you go as far as voting to shut down the government?
Well, I'm not one who wants to shut down the government. I want to keep the government open and be at the table to keep it open. And we find that shutting down the government, it costs more money than it saves, in fact, Dean.
Mm-hmm. Kathy, I interrupted you.
Yeah, you asked the same question I was going to ask, Dean, so that's okay. We'll let Kay go.
We have some other issue questions. Immigration's been an issue lately, but the minimum wage is an issue about which Democrats have been speaking. As a Republican candidate, what are you telling folks in regards to the federal minimum wage?
Well, I tell them I want to see every Iowan's pay raise go up. I want to see them make more money. In the past, with the minimum wage, it's been a bipartisan effort. We found a way to help raise the minimum wage and at the same time give small businesses tax relief. I think you have to have the tax relief on there. The CBO, the Congressional Budget Office, says 500,000 jobs may end if this happens without any
the
kind of relief.
$10.10.
Right. And so I think we need to make sure that the small business tax relief is there, and it has to be a bipartisan effort.
All right. Well, another issue that started off maybe as being a bipartisan effort, but it has devolved again, is immigration. As you think about that issue, Senator Grassley, of course, his feeling about that was driven by the law passed in the 80s that he felt ended up being amnesty without any real border security. Is your feeling about comprehensive immigration reform different than that? And how would you define amnesty?
Well, first of all, we have to make sure our borders are secure. It is the law. And, we see what's happening right now with these children coming across the border. There's a humanitarian issue here right now. I want to see the borders secured. I am not for amnesty. I would like to see a guest worker program, which we have had in the past, and which I think could work. I don't like what happened with the Senate bill, the 1,000-plus page bill, and I don't like the way in that bill the border was going to be certified as safe. It was going to be done unilaterally by the Department of Homeland Security and the President, and I think that Congress needs to have skin in the game to determine when this border is safe, and then we'll make sure that it is safe.
When you say amnesty, are you saying a path to citizenship that doesn't involve people going back to their country of origin and waiting in line? Is that what you're talking about with amnesty?
Well, that kind of fits in with the legal reform. I think that they need to get in the back of the line if there's going to be a pathway to citizenship, but my preference is a guest worker program.
What would you do with the children, unaccompanied children who are crossing the border in waves right now? Would you place them with families as deportation proceedings are happening, or would you send them back immediately?
Well, once again, you comment on the humanitarian face to all this. And like many Republicans and Democrats right now, they see this crisis, and there's great sympathy for these kids. They are without their family. And I believe that we need to make sure that we contact their governments and find where they came from and find a safe way to get them back there.
In regards to another issue that's come up in the campaign already, the renewable fuel standard, the federal rule which requires, in essence, a bunch of ethanol and biodiesel to be produced in the country. What's your rationale for supporting the renewable fuel standard?
Well, I look at our fuel at the pump and the monopoly that the petroleum industry has on that. And if we want to bring some competition, there may be some times when the government does get involved, and they've done this in the past, to try to bring some competition. And so this is not just great for farmers, but it's great for the pocketbooks of families who are paying less at the pump, and that's more money in their pocket.
But I've heard you say it should be phased out.
I'd like to see it phased out. I'd like to see it brought to that point where it's strong enough where you can phase that out and it can stand on its own.
What about wind energy tax credits, another popular tax credit in Iowa? Unpopular, however, with a lot of Republicans.
Well, we need comprehensive tax reform, and with that, I think you have to put all the tax credits, tax incentives on the table. And I don't want wind energy to leave Iowa. I want it to be there. In terms of tax credits for this industry or any other industry, I think they can be self-sufficient, and they've given the nod and said that maybe we can phase this out in 5 to 7 years, and we don't need to push them off a cliff, but let it be phased out.
The Keystone, go ahead, Kathy.
Go ahead.
The Keystone Pipeline, as long as you're talking about energy, coming down through Nebraska as near as it gets to Iowa, you know that you have been in favor of building that pipeline. It has not yet been approved. But what, if you were elected to Congress, could you do to make that a reality, if that's what you want?
Sure. Right now, the administration holds all the cards on this in terms of the State Department in making that order to allow it to happen. Congress could bring it up for a vote, and I think that's what needs to happen. We've seen that it's being done in the House, but not in the Senate, and so you have to bring it up for a vote. Those are great jobs, not just for folks from the northern states down to Texas, but also in Iowa as well. There's going to be great service jobs, manufacturing jobs, jobs for drivers, good paying jobs, and it's not just about jobs. It's about energy independency and energy national security.
And you're not concerned that it might be environmentally sensitive or harmful?
Well, the pipeline is safer than, let's say, it being carried on barges or boats or on trains. We've seen the major catastrophes related to these spills, so to speak, come from those vehicles.
What you're saying is better than what we have now?
I think so, yes, Steve.
One of the bright lines that gets drawn between the two parties in general election is often on social issues, with Democrats historically opposing any abortion restrictions and advocating freedom for people to marry regardless of their gender. Your party has not been in favor of that. What sort of priority would you make abortion rights and gay marriage as a congressman?
Well, currently with this president in a divided Congress, you're not going to see much done on it at all. And we're seeing the strategy here is now at the state level. We've seen things happen in many states around the country regarding marriage and life issues, abortion issues. And so that seems to be where the nexus is going. DOMA, the Defense of Marriage Act, kicked to the states, and as we know, it's legal in Iowa.
So nothing? Are you saying no priority for you? Let it happen at the state level?
Well, whatever. I will defend life and defend marriage if it is brought up at the federal level.
Okay, but you're not going to initiate anything to seek to push that issue along?
I just want to get elected first in November.
But what happens if you are elected and you get reelected in 2016 along with a Republican president? What would you like the federal government to do in regards to those issues?
Well, taxpayer funding, if anything, and partial birth abortion. But we'll see what kind of majorities we have. But, what I've been pushing here in my campaign are not social issues, although they are important to me personally, but issues on debt, the economy, government accountability. And as we know, we have a government that's out of control, and recently the IRS has pegged Barbara and Senator Grassley with a possible tax examination.
What I'm hearing you saying is, I just want to clarify, that abortion, gay marriage, same-sex marriage are not priority issues with you, that you have other things in mind that are priority issues. You have personal feelings on those two issues.
Personal feelings, but if there's an avenue, if there's a Republican majority or a Republican Senate, we'll explore those. Yeah.
There is one Veterans Administration hospital in your district, correct? In your would-be district if you're elected, pardon me.
Here in town.
What are your thoughts in regards to reform of the Veterans Administration?
Well, veterans, I'm from Van Meter. And they have Iowa Veterans Cemetery right there on the interstate. And I pass by that every day, and I think about the men and women who have sacrificed for our country. They need the best health care out there. And some are happy with what they're getting at the veterans hospitals. And for those that aren't, and we've seen some just awful stories across the country, I believe that they should be given credit or certificate to get the best private care if they want, or at another veterans hospital. But we need to take care of our veterans.
Can you do that without undermining the overall veterans system? Part of the discussion about essentially partially privatizing that system is that the unique ability of the Veterans Administration to practice the medicine that veterans coming back from combat really need, such as prosthetic research. Can you find a way to actually support both parts of that system?
I think you have to, because like you say, many veterans are very happy with what they're receiving in the veterans hospitals, especially those who come back with some, PTSD, that kind of thing, who want to be in a community of veterans who know what they've gone through and know what they're going through.
Do you support term limits? The fellow you work for in D.C., Senator Grassley, certainly doesn't.
Well, term limits is at the voting ballot every 2 years or 6 years if you're a senator, 4 years as a president. Seniority has helped Iowa. As Senator Harkin, Senator Grassley, Steve King, Congressman Latham, their seniority has helped Iowa and been able to put Iowa at the table. I'm not self-imposing term limits on myself. If a bill came up for term limits that it applied to all members of Congress, I'd likely vote for that to get some turnover there. But we have to be very careful about people self-imposing, because let's say I want to self-impose 6 terms and I'm out in 12 years, but it looks like the 14th year I could have been budget chairman and put forth some of my budget principles. I don't want to be in the position to break my word to Iowans.
Senator Grassley, as you mentioned, voted against the farm bill this last time. You've said that you would have voted for that. Am I correct in saying that?
You're correct, Kathy.
And so why would you? Why the difference there? And what do you think is the most important thing to do as we look toward farm policy for the future?
Well, the most important thing, first of all, the difference between Senator Grassley and I on that issue. He had a niche issue that he cared passionately about that was passed in the Senate and in the House, and in conference it was knocked out. And so that's probably the main reason why he voted against it.
Vote.
Yeah, protest vote, and he's all but said that in press releases and in statements. When it comes to ag policy, it's not always at the USDA that we have to look at. We have to look at the EPA and what they're doing. Right now they want to redefine water under the Clean Water Act, which could cause creek beds and culverts to be regulated and cause farmers maybe to have to be getting permits for tiling. We can't allow that to happen. And the EPA also, as you know, has rolled up their sleeves at one time to try to regulate dust and now methane, and they just need to have some more accountability. And we need to invite some of these EPA folks out to Iowa to show them that farms are not cookie cutter. They're not all the same. There's different practices and different things on farms.
Go ahead, Kate.
Beyond the investigation of the Internal Revenue Service and its targeting of additional scrutiny for conservative groups on their tax documents that have been submitted to the agency, would you vote to abolish the IRS and establish a national sales tax, as some Republicans are proposing?
Well, when tax revenue is sent in, it's going to have to be handled by somebody. I think the best way to lessen the impact of what the IRS does is by doing just what you said, some simplification of the tax code. Let's have the debate on the fair tax, that national sales tax. Mm-hmm. If that is passed, we certainly have to do something about the 16th Amendment, the income tax, and let's have the debate about the flat tax as well.
Would you prefer perhaps a flat tax?
I'm open to either one, but anything is better than what we have right now, in my opinion.
Are you saying abolish the 16th Amendment, or are you saying...
Well, I think you would have to if there was a national sales tax, because I tell you what, from what I've seen in that swamp of Washington, if you give another avenue for members of Congress to tax somebody, they'll take it.
So in other words, you don't want to have both a national sales tax and an income tax. It's one or the other.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Before we get too far away from talking about the veterans that we were speaking of in healthcare, I'm curious about what you think about possible further U.S. involvement in what's happening in Iraq right now.
Well, we made some headway up in just the last year. Really, we saw things just fall apart.
Yes. And so what should we do?
Well, I'm very wary of sending ground troops, but the first thing we need to do is to make sure that our civilian force and our military that is already there is taken care of. And we also need to make sure that we have a real debate in Congress about this because we need to have some real strategic planning, and we need to realize what area we're in, the Middle East. It's a powder keg. You see what's happening in Syria. You see what's happening coming down from Russia even. And so we just need to make sure that Congress is involved in this, and we need to take care of those who are there right now and defend them.
When we talk about balancing the budget, a lot of times the talk centers around which agencies you'd most like to abolish. And I have to tell you, it strikes me as being more of a political answer than a way to actually balance the budget. Most of these agencies, the amount of spending is a very small percentage of what actually goes into the budget. So as you look at the overall budget, what are the ways that the U.S. is really going to get to a balanced budget?
Well, you can look at every agency, and that's what I would do, from the Defense Department, Department of Commerce, what have you. There's plenty of waste, fraud, abuse, and mismanagement in there. And so we need to really, we need to go after that. And certainly at this point, we need to really freeze spending. And at the same time, we have to strengthen our Social Security and Medicare programs and look at entitlements because, as you know, Kathy and Kay, that's where the money really is for savings.
Entitlements and defense, right? So, do you have serious defense cuts, or are you talking about waste, fraud, and abuse that nobody knows for sure what that means?
We have only about a half minute remaining, Mr.
Well, I'd start with waste, fraud, and abuse there and in every other agency. But at the same time, we have to create an environment in this economy, in this country, to create more jobs, where there will be more revenue coming in to help draw down the debt and the deficits.
Thank you very much for spending time with us today and getting acquainted with you and your views.
Thank you, Dean. Kay, Kathy.
Thank you.
A programming note, too, because of Iowa Public Television's special presentation of a Capitol Fourth next week, Iowa Press, next Friday, will air at 11 o'clock at night, and then back to our usual time next weekend at noon on Sunday. I'm Dean Borg, and thanks for joining us today.
Funding for Iowa Press was provided by Friends, the Iowa Public Television Foundation.
Iowa banks know you want honest advice about how to best reach your financial goals, whether it's financing and education, buying a new home, growing a business, or funding retirement. Iowa Banks, Iowa Values. MyIowaBank.com.
The Rotary Clubs of Iowa and Rotary International.
In 1985, Rotary International committed to a goal of ending polio worldwide. Very soon now, after immunizing over 2 billion children, the goal will be achieved. Rotary. Humanity in motion.
Iowa Community Foundations, an initiative of the Iowa Council of Foundations, connecting donors to the causes and communities they care about, for good, for Iowa, forever. Details at iowacommunityfoundations.org. The Associated General Contractors of Iowa, the public's partner in building Iowa's highway, bridge, and municipal utility infrastructure. Iowa Communications Network. ICN's connectivity offers Iowa's rural hospitals and clinics access to telemedicine opportunities. Iowans can eliminate distance barriers by receiving medical treatment closer to home using remote specialists located miles away.